Good evening, Canadian Awareness family. Welcome to another episode of Canadian Awareness Podcast. My name is Anthony, and I'm an extra dimensional channeler out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, the entire purpose and the mission of this podcast is to truly have extremely wonderful, but also exciting conversations, empowering and enjoyable conversations with different brilliant minds across the world, individuals that I truly looked up to throughout my life, or individuals that I've never met, but I definitely desire to speak with. I desire to hear their opinions and perspectives on life and many different topics with an open mind, of course, and even have polite and respectful debates so that we all can learn from each other's experiences. And over the years, I've held several different careers, very small amount of careers that I'm extremely proud of, that I devoted a lot of time and energy to. But one of them was owning a gym when I was a young teen or early 20s. I owned a small gym, and it was dedicated towards bodybuilding and towards mixed martial arts, as I was a former MMA fighter, which ultimately led me into a close protection bodyguard, so close protection industry. And throughout these timelines that crossed into one another, I've learned a lot of different great advice, phenomenal amount of wisdom that I applied in my own life and benefited from. Met a lot of different connections, expanded my own network, expanded my own horizons, and these things certainly helped me become more dominant, more prideful, courageous in life. And I obtained this wisdom by working hard at what I was doing, but also to seeking advice without any shame, without any kind of interferences, fear-mongering, any kind of temptations. When I wanted advice, I asked for it, and I was never shy to do that. And when it comes to training and diet itself, that was one advice that I received from a person that I looked up to for a long time. My own father also looked up to for a very long time while my father's competition took place in his own career. And this man is with us this evening. And this man is one of the largest old school professional bodybuilders of all time, biggest names in the 60s and in the 70s. He has an immaculate reputation. And he's known to this day as one of the biggest names in professional bodybuilding of all time. This man is Frank Zane. I've had a pleasure not just to converse, but also to meet Zane on two different occasions. And he has won a tremendous amount of major world titles, including winning Mr. Olympia 3 separate times. He won then Mr. Universe 3 separate times. He has won everything from Mr. America to Mr. Worlds. And he's also an author, phenomenal author. He puts his mind to these projects that he writes. He does them wonderfully and beautifully. And he's one of the biggest experts on training today and dieting. Also active aging, performance coaching, and he's definitely one of the most highly educated bodybuilders that I've ever met. And I mean, in fact, he's been named as the top 10 legends of bodybuilding of all time. And I feel he certainly is a great role model for a lot of people, particularly older people, those approaching their own golden years. And Frank is also known or remembered as someone that had out of this world incredible aesthetics and physical proportion. I mean, his physique was truly one of the greatest in the entire history of bodybuilding due to his meticulous symmetry and proportion. And he eventually was induced into the IFBB Hall of Fame in 1999 by Arnold Schwarzenegger at an expo called Arnold's Classic in Columbus, Ohio. As well, he was induced into the Muscle Beach Hall of Fame, which is located in Venice Beach, California, the outside gym. It's also quite interesting that Frank was a former math teacher, but more importantly, that he is one of the 3 people alive on earth that have ever beat Arnold Schwarzenegger in the competitions. So that is certainly an accomplishment. And I look very, very forward to speaking with this man. I'm extremely excited. And without further delays, without further ado, I desire to bring into the studio now, Frank Zane. Good evening, Mr. Zane. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thank you, Anthony.
Wonderful to have you this evening. And as I mentioned to you before, I've looked up to you for an extremely long amount of time, including training to your poster on my wall. I think a lot of people have. And I appreciate your time being with us this evening, but also I appreciate your time speaking to the Canadian audience. And I have some questions from them. I have some personal questions to ask you. Start with my first question. The very first question obviously would have is, you and all of us already are aware of your accomplishments. And I understand, and many people can understand as well, the multiple amount of awards and bodybuilding competitions you have won, ranging from Mr. Olympia, Mr. Universe, Mr. America, Mr. World. You also were a math teacher. You also have a degree in psychology from university. You play harmonica. You're an excellent trainer. But my question to you is, if you can go back in time, Frank, What was the main source of motivation for you? What was the main source for inspiration for you to get to where you are today to accomplish all of these things?
I can't really pinpoint that. I just know at age 14, I felt there was something more I wanted to do with my physique. And I discovered weight training to be the best way to do that. And I started doing it. And I've been doing it ever since.
What would you say would be one authentic example out of your life that you can give us if you're willing to share of a really major disappointment? Some that's happened to you that maybe not necessarily romantically broke your heart, but that really crushed your goals and dreams. And how did you recover from that? What did you use as far as mental warfare or mindset? What did you do in order to prevail?
I always looked at it from the viewpoint that is if you don't win, you still have the same goal. And since you've already prepared for that, it's going to be easier to do it again. And so when I didn't win, I had that kind of attitude, but I'll just keep coming back until I do. And I did.
Consistency, dedication. So those were two things you would say were very important to you?
Yeah, perseverance, sticking to it. That's the main thing. If you don't get it right away, you can still get it in time. You just have to keep doing it and improving. So it's a constant process of growth.
All right, fair enough. Thank you for that. And one of the things that audience can obviously find out from your website and also from social media and internet is that you have been successfully married for a very long time to your partner and to your wife, and you guys have had this wonderful story almost of being these young individuals who fell in love, and to this day you are in a very successful marriage. So my question to you is, what would you say are the key pillars to such successful marriage that other couples that are younger, maybe going through some struggles, can look up to and learn from your own story?
Well, I think you have to want to be married. That's a key element of it, and you should be with the right person. So you find out after a little while if that's true or not, and you take it from there. So I knew right away that it was the right thing, and we just kept going with each other, and we've been married 55 years now, and things keep getting better and better.
Would you say that perhaps if you believe in incarnation, that universally speaking, the universe and the incarnation itself wanted you and made sure that you and your wife meet in this particular lifetime now that you're in?
Honestly, I don't know. I have that answer for a lot of things because I really don't know. It just seems to have worked out. And so I'd have to say if there's anything besides our own personal circumstances that brought this about, I welcome it.
Do you believe in incarnation, Frank?
I have to say again, I don't know. I don't remember it. I don't remember being somebody else in former life. Although I wrote in one of my books, the bodybuilding manual, about everybody saying to me from a young age, you're just like your Uncle Frank. Now, I don't know if that's reincarnation or if it's just product of somebody telling me that. But I am a lot like my Uncle Frank. I have the same name, some of the same traits, but I never knew him. He passed away before I was born.
I see.
So it may or may not be true. I think in life, so many things you don't know. And you have to accept it really if you want to go on with things. And as long as it leaves a good feeling, I think that's the main thing.
Right, no, very well said. And this is why I appreciate always open concept conversations with individuals that you may not agree with or that you know nothing about to exchange different ideas and exchange different
Sure.
perspectives. Yes. Do you agree with that, Frank?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. One of the questions my audience wanted to ask you was you have spoken about Buddhism, and you have also brought to the attention that power of intention and visualizations and meditations. Can you tell us how did that help you in your life? And also, what are your thoughts on Buddhism?
Well, I don't know if I'm a Buddhist or not. You might ask the question, is a cloud a member of the sky? What do you think?
I'm not sure. I mean, I wish to pick your brain and perhaps even ask you a
I'm not
question.
sure either.
Okay.
A lot of the things I believe coincide with what's in Buddhism, but you might say a lot of things I believe are part of, worldwide spirituality.
Right.
So it's a pretty simple thing. I just believe in living a good life and don't do harm to others.
I agree with you with that. Yeah, never harm someone, but also, in my perspective, don't ask for permissions. Obtain all those things that everyone tells you cannot obtain. Push the limits, push the limits and obtain. And I think you're a proven example of that, of course. Yes.
It's
One
what I
of,
wanted to do, and I realized that it would take a while, and so I went after it, and I eventually got it. It took me, I think, 10 years to win Mr. Olympia. Didn't win it right away, but I knew that I would eventually do it. So I just stuck to it. I got better and better, and it happened.
was it the injury that prevented you from winning the fourth?
I think it had a lot to do with it. I could have been better if I didn't have that injury. And things were pretty narrow at the time as far as who should win. And so, I did the best I could. I didn't want to back out of it. Besides, I figured I already have my plane ticket. I'm going to go to Australia regardless. And I was in good shape. But, the thing is, when in these competitions, especially in my case, judges not only compare you with everybody else, but they also compare you to how good you were in the past, to your past self. And I think that's the way it was with me. In 1979, I was probably the best shape of my whole career, and I was compared to that. In 1983, I was good, maybe the best there, but I was had this comparison still went on. So I didn't do too well that year. I got fourth. So I figured, well, there's my four. I wanted to win it four times, but I got fourth. So I'm going to have to be satisfied with that. I was already 41 years old, wanting to do other things in my life, like teach. And so that's when I retired, 1983, at age 41.
So, how did you go from being a math teacher, dedicating a lot of time and energy towards that, to just one day stopping and opening up your own gym with your wife?
I was always good at math, and I figured if you're going to teach it, math is the easiest thing for me to teach. And so, it was natural that I do that. Plus, there were a lot of math vacancies as far as getting a job teaching. There were a lot of vacancies in math. I think when I moved to Los Angeles, I checked it out. There were 70 vacancies for math teachers. So I had no problem with it.
So, in tax time here in Canada, am I allowed to call you to help me with some tax calculations?
That's not my area of expertise anyway. I hire somebody to do that for us.
No problem. I thought I'd make myself laugh, but I want to make you laugh. I have something from the past that you and your wife have mailed me approximately, I'll have to say 15, 16 years ago. I want to show you a little memory that I still keep very dearly. These are autograph photographs you've sent me directly to inspire me in my own training. Signed to me, and I just wanted to thank you for that. And they never went to waste. They never got put in some box, being kept in some storage in it. The story to the audience behind these two autographs by Frank Zane was when I had my own gym here in Toronto area, which was devoted to bodybuilding training and mixed martial art training. I'm a former mixed martial art fighter, and my ex-girlfriend had contacted Frank's wife, and I'm not sure what they talked about, but Frank was able to mail these without charging anything, and he did it because he believed in the story, believed in my dream, and he was very kind enough to do that. And to this day, I have these things framed, and I just wanted to show you that, Frank, that a little act of a beautiful gesture can make a big difference in an athlete's career, and you sure have made that difference for me. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
I've always said, when people ask me, I said, what do you think of Frank Zane? And I've had some time to spend in Venice Beach, California, to train with some IFBB former pro bodybuilders, Joanna Thomas and Tommy Thorelson and Nasser El Sombati. And I remember when they say, what do you think of the old timers? And my opinion, they never liked. But I want to get your opinion on that. I used to say, well, the champions of the 60s and the 70s, if you look at their physique and aesthetics, that has nothing to do with what we see today. And today, they're just massive, huge giants. But back then, they took pride and they took honor to do what they do. Do you think that there's a difference between first place champions today and first place when you guys were around, the old timers?
The way it was with me, I realized that my road to the top was not going to be getting as big as I possibly could. I could not weigh over 200. I couldn't even weigh 200. My best shape was weighing 190 at 5'9". So I went for that. I went by what I looked like in photos, my appraisal from other people. I didn't believe certain people like Joe Weider always told me, said, you got to get bigger. You have to get bigger. I never believed it because I tried getting bigger and the look wasn't there. So I went by what my own experience was.
Well, I think Arnold found out the wrong way, that he thought being bigger is better, and you have beat him successfully by being in less weight than he did. Is this correct?
Well, when he first came onto the scene, I think it was, what was it? I forget what year it was, but it was in 70s. He really wasn't in his best shape. He had just won NABBA Universe, and he came to this country. He wasn't really that muscular. Whereas it was 1968. I was very complete in 1968. I just won Mr. America, and I really didn't want to compete the next weekend in Miami, Florida, but I was talked into it, so I competed and won. So I wanted to save it for the next year, having something to train for it. So the fact that I won both titles in 1 year, that sort of left me motivated in a way, because I didn't have a contest to train for. But actually, I trained for Mr. World that year and won it. But that's not what I originally intended.
What motivated you? And I know I've asked you this earlier, but was there different things, different disappointments or different positive aspects of your life or things that you learned? What kept you going? What made you compete more and more and to really be the best?
That was my goal, and so I pursued my goal. It was as simple as that. And if I didn't win, I always looked at it at a chance to do better in the near future, because I still had the same goal. And I had already done a lot of the preparation previously, so it was nothing new, and it wasn't as much of a great sacrifice as it had been the first time I tried it. So I always looked to find something positive about what it was I was doing, and as long as I did, we call that the act of reframing. You know, putting your situation into a new context, in fact, putting it into a new picture frame, looking at it differently. A lot of times, the frame makes an older picture look a lot better. It's the context surrounding it. So be in the right context is the message.
Fair enough. And on several different occasions in the past, you have spoken against the use of steroids and anabolics. And there are several different clips that I've watched. I have one clip here I'd like to play for you. It's about 40 seconds. I'd like to ask you what your thoughts are on that clip, but also to elaborate a little more. And here's the clip.
Well, train in a sensible way. It's not going to happen overnight either. You'll try to get in shape in 1 day or 1 week or even a month. Take your time, do a good job. Take photos, learn what you look like, and visualize what you'd like to look like. Don't fall for any kind of schemes of getting big quick. Do not bulk up. Don't get big quick. If you can follow that, you'll develop a great body and you'll be able to have it for a long time. If you look at taking shortcuts or taking steroids or other performance-enhancing drugs, it's going to lead to you probably dropping out before you reach your potential. So
I think that says it all. I think, using steroids as an alternative to doing hard work is not going to get you to the top. No top champions do that, as far the ones I know anyway. If they do use steroids, which I'd say a lot of them do, most of them probably do, is just right before the competition to reach a peak, but not on an ongoing basis. You can't build your physique on that.
Going back to spirituality and going back to some of the comments you've made in the past, the power of intention, power of meditation, going back to that, would you say that these critical tools can assist any athlete or any person that's competing in their own way to really make them more powerful, to have a more dedicated, more concentrated? Do you believe in the power of affirmations?
Yes, I do. I think that when you say something, it's already behavior, and if you have the right to say it, and I always felt that if I said anything, I wanted to back it up with proof. So if I talked about, like I remember I was asked, it was 1977 before the Olympia contest, and Ricky Wayne asked me, how do you think you'll do in this Mr. Olympia this year? And I said, it is my intention to win. And it was, and I won. And so basically I spoke the truth because it was my intention to win. And I did everything to make that happen.
Power of mind, power of intention, visualization, extremely important. And being in the spiritual industry, absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm very glad that you feel this way. Happy to hear that.
If a person speaks the truth long enough, eventually his word becomes law. And I've always believed that if you call things the way they are, that's the way it tends to be. If not immediately, then over time.
Very good. I like that. I may use that in the future. I have a question in relation to death. In one of the interviews recently I watched, I believe the interview was done in your own house, in your own gym. Someone's asked you, how do you feel about death after you die? Where does the soul go? And you've expressed that you're okay with it, and the sadness would come, I believe, from the leaving people behind. Would you be able to elaborate that? How do you feel about death of a loved one, of a partner, or even your own?
There's not much you can do about it except accept it. And so, you do the best you can. I think your own death is probably the easiest to accept because you have no choice. You're there, and who knows what happens. Hopefully, you'll go to a really good place. There are all kinds of stories about that. There's heaven in Buddhism. There's the Pure Land, the far Western paradise. All those things that hint as there's something better than what's happening to us now. But my whole idea about that is make what's happening to you now the Pure Land. Live a life so that everything is as good as you expect it to be, and do the most you can to make that happen.
No, fair enough. I've always believed, as a spiritual person, or maybe a little deeper than an average spiritual person, that I don't wish to use the terminology, religious terminology, heaven. I already am good enough to go wherever I wish to go. And yes, you're right. Concentrate on this life, fill it with a tremendous amount of excitements, and I just have fun. Never hurt anybody, but have a lot of fun. That's always been my motto, to be honest with you. Aside from regular dedications, aside from regular motivations in life and goals and dreams and all of these things, but have fun because this incarnation is extremely short, and I'm known for saying that. So thank you for giving us your own perspective. Now let me ask you, in relation to people talk about significant pillars, rules you live by, what would you say that one day, Frank, when you leave this earth, when you go back home, wherever your soul goes, what do you wish to be remembered by? What kind of things, aside from winning Olympias, aside from being one of the greatest bodybuilders, hands down, what on a personal level do you wish to be remembered by?
I think my words, things I've written, things I've said, examples from my life, I just said that. I just basically, there's a really good saying for that. It's everything is pure, spontaneously accomplished from the outset. That means that everything is pure right from the start. And you should think about it that way. Whatever is happening because things have led up to that as you set it up. And I think we have a personal responsibility for everything that happens because we arranged it. We set it up either consciously or unconsciously. So accept it and maybe look into as to why things happen the way they did. What part did you play? How did you cause it?
Do you think that a lot of the things within your life, my life, every one of our lives is already arranged on a soul level prior to us coming down here to this earth to incarnate as humans?
I don't know. That's my simple answer is I really don't. But I do know that we play a part in all of it while we're here by what we think, what we say, and what we do.
Sometimes I see this life as a video game, and it's a fun video game filled with disappointments, happiness, excitements, agonies, fear, love, all of these things. And you're running into people that you think are strangers, but they're actually just people or consciousnesses that you have incarnated many, many different times in previous lives. And here you are in this life. You're on the stage with them competing, or you can see them in a grocery store, or you're dating them, or you dislike them. They're your boss, they're your son, they're your father, they're your neighbor. Would you say that that is something that you would agree with or disagree with, or where do you at with that, what I just said?
My question is, who's running the projector? Are you
Yes.
running it? How could you run the projector and then yet be in the movie? So who's running it? Is it God? God running the projector? Is it you of yesterday? Future you? The you believe yourself to be? I don't know. I think that's the main answer to all of this is I don't know. I really don't. And so I'm curious to find out. And so I live I live my life in a vein of working to find these things out by my experiences.
No, fair enough. And one of the things that you always talk about is motivational related things. You don't just give advice on training and diet and so forth, but you're a phenomenal author. You have tremendous amount of books put out. Some are available online as an ebook, as a download. Some are Kindle books. We can see them on Amazon. And one of the books I wish to ask you a question about, which is this one right here, I'm going to feature. It's called High Def Body. In this particular book, I have a copy of it. I didn't purchase it. It was given to me a long time ago. What made you and what inspired you to write this particular book?
That was the first book I wrote in a series of 3 books. That was the first one, High Def Body. And it just basically outlined what I was doing at the time, my training, nutrition, all that, my mindset. And the next one, I believe, was Symmetry, which was, devoted towards symmetry, but building a balanced physique, physically, mentally, spiritually. And the third one was called Let's Grow, which was about growing, growing in all aspects of your life. And so my current volume, which is called Zane Bodybuilding Manual, incorporates that book. It incorporates High Def Body, it incorporates Let's Grow, and it incorporates Symmetry. Also incorporates Fabulously Fit Forever. So it incorporates 4 to 5 books that I've written in the past, all condensed into one volume.
Are you going to be writing any more books, Frank, or are you perhaps in the process now of writing a book?
Actually, I am. I'm gradually doing one. Tentatively, it's called Body by Zane. It's just an update of everything I've done so far. Current training, a bunch of stuff about training for competition, which I really haven't dealt with in a detailed manner before, is what do you need to do to compete? Things to do, things to watch for, how to get feedback, how to practice, all that.
When it comes to contacting you today, I know that a lot of people obviously know who your name is, Frank Zane. I think birds in the sky even know that. That's the amount of reputation you carry in the IFBB industry. But when it comes to your website, I had a chance to look at it, and I know that a lot of different things are available there. So frankzane.com is your main website. Aside from your biography, aside from certain video interviews you've done in the past, can you tell us, though, about the program? You are very famous now for having this program, Zane's program, Frank's program of teaching, training someone remotely, of course. Can you tell us about that? What would be an advantage to joining that program? What is the benefit of your program?
Well, I really prefer to deal with people in person, that they come here to my facility so I can work with them firsthand and see their form in the exercise and see what they really look like up close. But if they can't do that, I can deal with them more remotely with photos and videos, and I do both. So it's all of what that person has the means to do.
And aside from training them, do you also equip them with mental advice to be successful mentally and emotionally, aside from just winning a competition or losing weight or gaining muscle? What kind of mental training advice, your wisdom, do you provide to your clients?
I think the main thing is when you say something, do it. Don't just talk idly and say things that aren't true or that you'll never do or that you don't believe. Don't gossip. Speak the truth and then act on it. And see, that's really all that really makes sense is when you say something and it happens, then you have real power. If you don't, then you have no power.
Would you agree that in today's society, truth is hated on the most?
I don't know. I don't really look for that, but I think that it's important not only to be truthful, but also to be tactful. You know, do things, say things in the right manner that make you acceptable to people. You know, learn what you have in common with them and play on that. There's I don't know where it comes from, but there's three things involved in communication. One is affinity, means that you like the people you're working with. Reality, that means you agree with them on certain things you're talking about. And that leads to the third thing, communication. Affinity, reality, communication. Simple as that.
When I was in my, I would say, late teens, I had your poster on my wall. My father was born in the 50s. He had a poster of you and Arnold and Sergio Levi and those guys, Tom Platz and those guys on his wall. You've inspired so many different people, and not to get poetic on you, but this is the truth. You have inspired me to be a bodybuilder. I relocated to Venice Beach from Canada to work at Venice, to train, to be as best as I can be. But today, all of the athletes who wish to become bodybuilders, who wish to train, who wish to either get into the IFBB or just do it because they enjoy lifting weights, what advice would you give them, an overall collective advice of all of the wisdom that you have in relation to the training? What would you tell the new, brand new athletes getting into the bodybuilding industry?
Well, learn how to train, learn what the best thing to do for your own physique. And I would suggest my books are a good guide to that. The Zane Bodybuilding Manual, which is sort of like a Bible. It's got everything in it, 436 pages, history of what I went through at different stages. That tells the whole story. Short of that, there's other books. There's one workbook that I think is really effective for people who want to train. It's called 91 Day Wonder Body. In 3-month program, there's workouts telling you exactly what to do every day. That's a good program to follow. So those two, I think, are probably the two most effective. The other thing is I have a workout DVD that's been around for quite a few years now called Train with Zane DVD. It's all my workouts, all my exercises on the DVD. So I've endeavored to put out good training information because I'm a teacher, and I want people to know what the best way is to do things, and so I've put these things out.
I wish to personally, right here on camera, thank you for everything that you've done for our human collective. I think you're absolutely a class act, and I feel even awkward calling you Frank. I think I should be calling you Mr. Zane, because this is the level of respect and appreciation I wish to send you here from Toronto directly to you.
Well, thank you, Anthony. It's nice of you to say that. And that's always been my goal, to put out information that will be helpful to people. And so I continue to strive to do that. And I'm glad it's having a positive effect. So I will keep doing it. I appreciate your feedback.
And before we go, I wish to play you a clip of my own training once to either make you laugh or for you to say you did this improper. But I wanted you to give me your take on it. Was my form correct? Here's a video clip of a friend of mine, IFBB pro Tommy Thorolson from Oslo, Norway. This clip is late 90s, I would say. And I just wanted to see your take on it. How good did I do or how bad did I do? Here's the clip. How bad was that or how good was that, Frank?
I thought it was good. You had good rhythm in your curls, but the only thing I would do better is I'd lower the weight more slowly. Do a slower negative, you'll get more out of it because you are a good 40% stronger on the negative than the positive. So fight the weight a little bit on the way down. Don't let it just go down on its own. But you had good rhythm on that. I mean, it'll work. It's the way we used to do things before we knew about doing slower negatives.
A very sincere appreciation of you being here with me this evening. I'm honored to have you. I truly am. My biggest regards for everything you've done for the human collective as well as the bodybuilding industry. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Anthony. And please send me a link to this one you posted, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. And there we have it, Mr. Frank Zane. Thank you very much, Frank, for being with us this evening. And all of us that have listened to what Frank had to say, I'm sure that we all can learn a thing or two from this wise individual, a legend of bodybuilding, 3-time Mr. Olympia. I'm certainly grateful that he's with us this evening. For more information on Frank and Frank's biography, his accomplishments, his training, his DVDs, and other material, including the booklets and the books that he sells online and the hard copies, please visit Frank Zane's website at frankzane.com. Again, that's www.frankzane.com. And with this, I greet you all this evening. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy of being here with me this evening. Hope you had a wonderful time, and I will see you in the next episode of Canadian Awareness Podcast. Good night.